Utah Hockey Club's heating up 4-0-1 in the last 5 games. In December, they're 4-0 on the road, which is part of that stretch. Also, we've got defensive updates for you. Tom Callahan and Robyn Leaño coming your way with the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Jump on board with us. Welcome in. It's time for the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. I'm former NHL voice Tom Callahan, and joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño. We bring you the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day when it comes to the Utah Hockey Club. We have a lot to talk to you about here coming out of a busy weekend for the UHC. Plenty of stuff going on. A couple of defensive updates, which we're going to get to later in the show, which actually, I don't want to call them exciting, but at least we know some progress, so we'll be able to talk to that. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Robyn. I don't know if you've noticed, but in the month of December, Utah is 4-0 on the road, and they're 4-0-1 in their last 5.
That's honestly that's fun. You know, that's a little fun stat there. It makes you feel good. It shows that this team is kind of going in the right direction. But maybe is this team just happen to play better on the road? They just have to be away from the Delta Center. What is it?
Well, some teams that are better on the road will tell you there's a myriad of reasons for why. And look, there's no real reason why a team wins here, wins there, doesn't win here, doesn't win there. Like there's no actual reasons for it, but we, especially in the media, we have to talk about these things. So we try to surmise why there may be reasons, whether it's the lack of distractions, you can focus, you're away from home. If you have a family with kids, you're not dealing with that, or the dog has to go out in the middle of the night, you're probably getting better sleep. There's a million things we could say, but can I point to one thing that I think is important, because they did it again against the Sharks, and in fact, it ended up winning them the game, is the power play's clicking right now. Another 2 power play goals against the Sharks, including the game winner with, I think it was 44 seconds to go. Utah Hockey Club, look, special teams, when you are a borderline playoff team, special teams can make you an in the playoffs as opposed to an out of the playoffs team if they can get the job done.
I think certainly so. And I think that's an interesting, point you put out there. How important special teams is. And I think what's interesting is maybe if the team is getting comfortable with each other a lot more, maybe some slight personnel change, or maybe, I think this might be the case because the personnel change, maybe, the coaching, who knows, is it Tourney that's doing it, or is it John Madden, or is whoever it is that's doing it, is saying, like, maybe changing the strategy. They said, hey, earlier on the season, this power play strategy did not work for this team. Let's change it up. Something is working, and that power play looks great. I think that overall, in general, the special teams looks great. Also, as we talked, as I've been hammering it on, and I've always liked to mention this, Tom, is slowly but surely you show what taking less penalties, or less unnecessary penalties, I should say, in a game will really do for you.
Yeah, it's funny what happens when you do stay out of the box. Although the Sharks game was a bit of a parade too, said penalty box.
Yeah.
There were 5 minors whistled against Utah. The Sharks just couldn't help themselves. 8 times they were penalized. And look, 2 of those situations were coincidentals. Okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But so really what that means to me is essentially Utah was penalized once a period in that game. That's actually not a bad rate. And you're right. When you're not taking the either lazy penalties or the just you're not paying attention stuff, like that really helps out a lot, because penalty killing is hard work. It is too difficult, physically taxing minutes on whoever's out there.
It really is. And I think, and that really changes the momentum of the game, right? If you are down by that much, and especially if it's lopsided, right? Let's say you are a team that takes, you have like, let's say 15 minutes of penalty minutes against you, but the other team has only 4. Who's going to have more momentum? The one that has better, full strength for more of the game is going to have more momentum.
And even if they don't score, Robyn, on those 2 minutes, yes, there are times when you get through a difficult penalty kill and you gain momentum. You get a burst from that. But most of the time, the team coming off the power play, unless it was an absolutely lackluster power play, carries some momentum, probably until the next whistle, perhaps through the next shift or two.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they don't score, you still then have to work to get that momentum going back in your favor. So, I mean, that's always difficult. And I think, yes, that's part of why they're heating up. Special teams is absolutely
Yep.
why they're heating up. But the other thing I think is a good reason to point to why this team is starting to heat up is they're finally getting the contributions across the board from the players that we were talking about. Nick Schmaltz is on the score sheet again. Now he's up to 5 goals on the year. And I know it was a frustrating start for him. I know it was. But now to see pucks start to go in for Schmaltz, I think, is a huge sigh of relief. It makes that top line feel a lot better about itself. And you know what? We're seeing some really good contributions from, guys like Cooley. I think who's starting to look more and more comfortable every single time out there. Not that he looked uncomfortable to begin with, but you know what I mean? Like we're kind of hitting our stride a little bit.
Yeah.
Here.
And I think that's an important thing. I think especially you've mentioned Schmaltz, right? And the important things we talked about it. We talked about our concerns of Schmaltz because yeah, he was getting assists, but the dude's a goal scorer. He's known for scoring goals, and he hasn't had a lot up until recently, and we're like, what's happening? Did he get snake bitten on the way up to Utah? What's happening? It looks like he's finally shook off whatever was ailing him. He's kind of getting back into classic old Nick Schmaltz, and I think a lot of the other ones, they are getting, as you mentioned, more comfortable. And also, as you said, not that they weren't that they were uncomfortable previously. It's just they're finding a groove better in this team, and also new city. Like let's be real. Like a change to a new city, especially when that happens this quickly, for a whole team. Like if you're one player, that definitely changes. But we're talking about a whole team up and moves overnight. I mean that there's got to be some level of bother or whatever it is that's in the back of their head. They not saying they're not going to have fun. This team's having a lot of fun. They love Utah, but there is a change. Change is hard for some people.
Yeah, I mean, your route to the rink changes because you don't even know where the rink is for the first couple of weeks you're there.
Yeah.
In your practice facility. Where are we today? Oh, we're at the Olympic Oval. Okay, where's that again? Hang on, let me get the GPS. Whereas before you were just kind of on autopilot. So yes, until you get your routines established, it takes a little bit. Plus, on top of that, like it matters a lot to NHL players. I mean, it matters a lot to players at pretty much any level, but you've got to learn your own rink. You've got to learn where the funky bounces are. You've got to learn where the difficult lighting is, if there is any. You've got to learn where the weird pane of glass is. You've got to learn whether or not the bench door sticks by where you try to come in and get out. Like all these things that people don't think about. There's a lot of different reasons. It was interesting, and it was almost like a passing comment. A couple of weeks ago, I was watching one of the TV broadcasts, and they talked about Vejmelka had made a comment about the puck coming at him from one end. It was so dark that a lot of times if the puck was up at all, it would camouflage the path of the puck or the flight of the puck, and they had to work on changing the background essentially for the color for him to be able to see the puck better. And these are things you just don't think about as a fan on a day-to-day basis. But if you put a puck up in the air, goalie loses it. That's like a fly ball in the sun, and the fielder can't see it. It's going somewhere. Hopefully, it's not in your net, but it could.
Yeah, and the amount of times that it's like that, like a bad bounce like that has happened, or because you're unfamiliar with how nice works, and Look, it even goes beyond happening in NHL. It happens all over hockey. That's just hockey for you, right? You have to learn your rink. Heck, I'll even tell you this, Tom. When new people come into my league, I tell them, like, oh yeah, see that corner over there? Like, stay away from that corner by the Zamboni doors, because you might fall if you're not used to it, because it's crazy.
You have a door that eats sticks. I always love when there's enough of a gap and players will throw a stick blade in there, and all of a sudden, the boards ate my stick, and it's sitting there going.
I don't think we've had that yet. We don't have that, but we have a number. There's a number of things at the rink that, again, they're like, to new people, when they come on the ice, they get so shocked by it. And I like that you mentioned that too, because I'm giving everyone like a real life experience that's what happens.
Yeah.
Once I've been playing on that rink for 3 years now, and I know that rink inside and out. So I know all the areas, and I know all the difficulties that it can come with, that I can I have adjusted myself around that over time. That's what happened. That's what you got. Everyone just needs to realize it takes time to adjust.
It absolutely does. It really does. I mean, that's so, but sometimes you do play better on the road because those road rinks haven't changed, right?
Exactly.
And Robyn, do you like crazy stats? I got a surprising, maybe crazy. I've got a couple for you if you're interested.
Yeah, let's hear that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at a live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect gift. Look, I love going to sports events with friends or family. It's a really fun experience. Last Christmas, on Christmas Day, my family and I went down to Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, watched the 49ers game, and we all had a blast together. Even though my Niners didn't win that game, we still had a fun time, because it's just the experience of being together, watching watching a sport we all loved, and it's just also getting great deals. That's where we look at Game Time to find those kinds of deals and tickets, because they have all these amazing deals with those last minute deals, all in pricing. There's an awesome thing that they do. It's called Game Time Picks. It curates offers for you to make it easier to save more on sports. Like I mentioned, some games you can get to, but also more other things like concerts, comedy, theater, and more. I mentioned the all-in pricing. I really want to recommend this to you guys too as well. You toggle this feature on. It's off by default, but so toggle it on when you use the app. That will show with no surprise fees at checkout, because those fees will be lumped into your total price before you even click the button, so you know exactly what you're going to pay for. You got seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. That way, you're not going to get an obstructed view seat if you thought you were going to get a better seat. Lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
Oh, I love numbers, stats, and all kinds of fun things. I also love knowing when it's game time. So that's a huge plus. Hey, check this out, Robyn. Check this out. So folks who may not know, you may be new to the show. If you are, first of all, welcome. Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for checking us out. While you're here and you got a second, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, click the bell so you get the notifications every time a new episode drops. So housekeeping out of the way. I am a broadcaster in real life of sports play-by-play. So whatever sport I'm doing, I like to have my little notes and nuggets with me. So Robyn, I decided I was going to go not too far off into the weeds, but I started looking at some road splits here.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to hit you with a couple of numbers to talk. Again, we're talking about the success of the Utah Hockey Club on the road. why they've done so well away from home. Well, let me start by telling you they're tied for 5th in the league in road wins. 10. And the Caps and the Wild have the most with 12. And Utah Hockey Club, although they have played more road games than any of those teams in front of them, the fact that they're even in the same breath is pretty impressive to me. I think that's an incredible stat. Here's another one that actually caught me completely by surprise. 4th most road goals in the NHL. And they are only 4 goals off the lead pace of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay has 62 road goals for. Utah Hockey Club has 58 road goals
nice
for.
Company to be in.
It is. And the teams in front of them, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and Washington. Teams tied with them are the Winnipeg Jets, and teams behind them include Colorado, Florida, New Jersey, and Vegas. So, like, those are some pretty nice numbers. There's some other stuff you could, you know what, if you get into the splits, there's a bunch of good stats sites, and I know, Robyn, you're more on the fancy stats side than I am, but I just was kind of going down that rabbit hole of the road splits, and everything that I looked at, the special teams numbers are up on the road. They're better than they are at home. The goals for is better. The road record is better. They just, for whatever reason, seem to have a little bit more focus. And in a league where it is often the race to 3 goals, I think that this team is figuring out a way to settle themselves, play solid, if not boring hockey on the road sometimes. But that's often how you come out with your victories, is you just play it safe. And then when you get opportunities, because everybody makes mistakes, you capitalize on your opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's I don't know. I just love hearing, hearing all that too. And it's really, honestly, all I'll say this is I just love hearing stats, Tom.
Road power play tied for 7th. I'll give you a couple more. Road power play tied for 7th, 25.5%. That means 1 out of every 4 power play chances on the road is going in. That's fantastic.
That is fantastic. I think, and that really shows that, again, maybe it's, maybe it could be a slight skew of maybe they have the amount of road games, or this length of time on road games of on the road versus being at home or something. But I mean, those are nice stats to have, though. I mean, no matter what way you slice it, it's nice to be there.
Okay, so home goals for, just to give you one example.
All right.
31st out of 32 teams in the NHL. 33 goals at home. 58 on the road, 33 at home. Home power play, 14.7%. Also near the bottom. 71.1 on the kill, also near the bottom.
So what you're telling me now...
4 home wins, also near the bottom.
So what you're telling me is when next time we bring up our FanDuel picks of the game, if it's a home game, pick the under. If it's a road game, pick the over.
And actually, I understated it, Robyn. 4 home wins is the fewest in the league. 11 points is the fewest in the league. Now, here, let Tom Ray of Sunshine this for you. They've also played the fewest home games in the league so far, 12. But teams who have played 13 home games include the Kings, Bolts, and Hawks. Chicago only has 5 home wins because they're not good. Tampa Bay has 8, but LA has 10. They're 10-1 at home. LA is doing what you should do. They're winning at home, 500 on the road. We say this all the time, or at least I do. If you win at home and you're 500 on the road, you're a playoff team. Utah is kind of going about it backwards. They're winning on the road, and if they can get to 500 at home, Robyn, they could be a playoff team.
It really is funny too. I mean, maybe, and it's certainly possible. I feel like maybe once, and as you mentioned in the first segment, once they get a lot more used to the Delta Center and kind of how, and its quirks and what the corners of the ice or whatever it might be, like maybe something will just click and they'll find their home groove. There have been a lot of situations which we'll see that happen. It just something clicks. Maybe, maybe the holidays will be nice to them once they come back from the holiday break after New Year's. I feel great.
And Robyn, I feel like one of the things that teams do on the road, whether it's subconscious, whether it's conscious, whatever it is, but they just simplify their game on the road. They try to bring things down to a more livable level and try to be smarter about what they're doing and how they're doing it, which I fully support all teams to do that. I think you should, because what it does is when you make the simple, safe play, a lot of times instead of trying to make the fancy cross ice, thread it through 4 people for the breakaway, those passes are 1%ers, right? I mean, they're 99% of the time, it's either a turnover or at the very least blocked. Yep. So stop making those plays. Make the high percentage plays. And that's whenever you hear somebody talk about a high percentage play, that's what they mean. A high percentage of the play that you're making succeeding in what your goal is for the play, whether it's clearing the zone or getting a shot through on net. Yeah. You try to go for the high percentage play. And I feel like they do that more on the road. I'd love to see them do that more at home.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that because I think there's a couple situations where, like at home, I probably see, the amount of times I've probably seen like a down the middle stretch pass, gives me a heart attack sometimes, Tom. I see it happen way too many times. Not to say that they don't do the stretch passes on the road. They do. But I feel like for some reason it's a little bit smarter. Is their stretch passes on the road? They do them along the boards, and go to figure, along the boards works a lot better sometimes.
I feel like Andre Tourigny would have a full head of hair if it wasn't for the stretch passes.
Yeah, I hear you. Like the amount of times, like I said, like I was saying. The stretch passes, I felt like it was almost giving me a heart attack sometimes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's going to get, so it's going to turn it over. And it's all of a sudden, there we go. Odd man rush.
And that's the word. And the goalies hate that. The player who ends up defending it hates it. It's not good for anybody. And then you put your goalie in a difficult spot to make a huge save. And they've been getting them 2 out of 3, I'd say, on those chances. But the problem is the third one goes in, and those can be crushers. So I don't know. That's but so the point is though, Robyn, they've been better about it lately. So let's hope they're cleaning up their game, despite the fact that they are now down another defenseman. And we're going to talk about that. I got some updates coming up here for you on what's going on with the D. And while it's not, hey, everybody's coming back tomorrow, at least I think we're getting a little bit closer on some of these guys. All right. Well, I need to tell you that today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And today's show also brought to you in part by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about, or maybe that you're paying for twice? That definitely happened for me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was actually still paying for. And Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel, more importantly, your unwanted subscriptions. Then it monitors your spending and it helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. That's crazy. So for me, I love the subscription tracker because there are times when with different family members, it gets kind of convoluted. Who's paying for what? Who's got what subscription? I've got to log in for this. Yeah, well, so do I. And then you find out you're paying for it in duplicate. It's the worst. So this helps you. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, there's a goals feature, which is great, and I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. It's all right there in the app. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. So, without getting defensive about the updates, and by defensive, I mean defensive. I don't know where I was going with that, Robyn. I just, there's so much going on with this decor.
Yeah, it's, I feel like it's a decor that can't catch a break. They've the amount of times I feel like it's like every other week we're hearing something new.
Got a new one. Robert Bortuzzo, officially day-to-day, but hasn't played since he left the game earlier. Well, I guess last week now. Didn't play against the Avs, didn't play against the Sharks. Kolyachonok has gone in. And then they ended up recalling Kevin Connauton coming up from the Tucson Roadrunners. So Connauton steps in. Remember, this is a team that is also missing. So Maverick Lamoureux came up, and just about the time it looked like he was getting comfy and getting settled, what happens? Boop, he's out 4-6. It's like, come on. You lose him. Oh, we've already lost Jersey. We've already lost Marino. It's like they're just dropping like flies, Robyn. This is unbelievable. Bortuzzo's out now. It's like, what? I'm not going to ask what else could happen because I don't want to find out.
Is there like, what I like to wonder is, are there like booby traps along the blue line that like just cause these injuries?
It's unbelievable. It really is. Now, look, it's creating opportunity, right? I mean, Kolyachonok, who quite frankly lost his spot this year, is now back into the lineup because they need him to be. Bortuzzo, who was originally signed on a 2-way contract and I figured would be in Tucson mostly in a leadership role and would be up when needed, has been up the entire time. Why? Injuries. We haven't even seen Marino. We never got a look at Marino. He had lower back surgery. We've never gotten a look at him, and it's a 4-month rehab-ish on that. So, so this is where I come in with the updates, Robyn. So here's where we're at. So Connauton up, Kolyachonok in. Durzi is finally out of his sling from his surgery, which is great, but says there's no definitive timeline for when he'll be back. Now, when he went out, 4 to 6 months that's a wide window, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some guys are faster healers than others. It's also probably going to depend, not only on the personal healing and how he progresses, but also where the team is.
That's a huge thing. I feel like a lot of people don't take a look at that. Like if Utah is, massive slump, they're not even close to a playoff spot, you just give a player like him the extra rest. It's like that. Well, you might not be 100%, but by the time you come out by next season, yeah, you definitely will be 100%.
And if you're not challenging for the playoffs this year, maybe even if you're challenging for the playoffs and he's not in the lineup, there's still no need to rush him back.
No, of course.
And depending if you're a buyer or seller at the deadline. But the other thing too is Marino, his timeline puts him back, and nobody's really saying anything about this, but maybe about a month and a half out. So end of January could be a potential target date. And again, depending on the individual player's healing. But that's really what you're shooting for here. And look, as somebody who's had lower back issues for a very long time, from, believe it or not, a sledding injury, it's interesting to me how there are days when everything feels amazing. And then there are days when everything is on fire, it won't work, and I can't bend over to pick up my own shoes. So they're touchy. And now, mind you, I am far from a professional athlete, Robyn.
Yeah.
But these things go up and down. They go back and forth, and you don't want Marino back until he's 100%.
Oh, absolutely. And as you said, yeah, lower back can be interesting. Like, I know a lot of people, they've described it as like, sometimes they'll be fine. Sometimes they'll wake up and they're like, everything hurts, because that lower back kind of supports everything else.
And some people carry their tension in their lower back, their worries, their anger, their concerns. It all nestles. It's either your shoulders. Some people have it up there. Some people throw it in the lower back area. So I will say this, though, Robyn, here's just a general tip. This is not why you come to this podcast, but lower back pain a lot of times can be alleviated by stretching your hamstrings. Sometimes it's just tight hamstrings pulling on your lower back. Stretch.
What's interesting? Oh, stretching is important, even beyond hamstrings. What I like to do is I did this when I was a cross country runner in high school and early college, and then even now when I before I get out on the ice and play hockey, is I'll do my do a hip flexor stretch, and then I twist my back a little bit to kind of get my back going too. So I kind of get two in like a little twofer right there, and it really helps.
Yes. Your hips, everything, it's all tied together. It's all tied together. Now Marino already knows this. I'm sure he's hearing it every day in PT. But so that's kind of the timeline on where we are right now. So Kolyachonok has stepped in. I think it's been all right. I think with Kevin Connaughton up, you might see him get a look somewhere in here at some point. And again, I mean, we're at a point with this Utah Hockey Club defense where now you've got 4 big time injuries going on at once.
What it definitely seems like is, I feel like, for the sake of Tucson, what they're doing is they're calling a defense, a D-man up, let them play for like that week, and then send them back down, and then bring the next guy up. That way, you're not, you're not risking anything else. It's you don't want to take that. You don't want to take that risk, and all of a sudden Tucson gets even more left in the dust, because like you don't want, let's say, Maximilian Zuber to come up, and then all of a sudden, whoops, Zuber's out 4 weeks, and then and then all of a sudden, as you mentioned, Tucson ends up having to, play with a bunch of East Coast guys. It's on the blue line. That's just not fair to them.
Although I have been in situations where I've been in the American Hockey League, and one of the teams I was with was Tucson. This didn't happen with them, but when I was with Peoria, St. Louis's farm team, St. Louis was going through defensemen and goaltenders that year like crazy. And I think St. Louis used 6 goalies, and we used 7 that season, which is impossible to figure out. But when the injuries mount, Same thing with defensemen. I mean, you're going through guys, they're up and down. It's hard to get anybody in a rhythm. So the fact that I'll say this, the fact that Utah Hockey Club is 4-0-1 in the last 5, is 4-0 on the road in December, is actually pretty remarkable considering what they're going
all
through
things
right
considered.
now.
Yeah. I mean, like, and to me, that, like, if I'm a Utah Hockey Club fan and you're listening to this podcast, like, that gives me hope. Right? That gives me hope that this team is definitely going to have what it takes. A healthy team, a healthy Utah Hockey Club, maybe just a little bit of tweaks. This blue line can get a lot better. Looks like the offense is going. Like, this team definitely, let's say, like we talked about, maybe not this year, but maybe next year, but a couple years down the road, it's going to be an incredibly scary team in the face in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and that's something pleasant to look forward to. And I think that, fans can be excited about the continued growth of this team. They get together, they're healthy. I mean, Sergachev is still young, still learning. I know it's interesting to see, we haven't even really mentioned him talking about the defense, and there's praise to be given, but there's also mistakes being made. And I think that is just the learning curve of a young-ish defenseman who has a ton of skill, wants to put it on display all the time, and is figuring out how to handle top minutes. in the NHL right now. So that's why I think bringing in Olli Maatta was awesome.
It was
that was
great.
a huge move.
I mean, take a look at, and even though November itself was a pretty terrible month for the club, like I feel like that the end of October, I think to me was a kind of like that was like a really low for them. Seeing some of the losses they took, bringing in Olli Maatta, they got a lot. You know, the competition came back, and I feel like that definitely helped. Seeing and plus, yeah, he was willing to take those minutes, eat those heavy minutes.
And that is really, I think, something that, Utah Hockey Club had planned on sharing those with Sergachev, Durzi, Marino, and then, Cole, as I mentioned, coming in off of last year, he was 19 plus on time on ice. And I think they were hoping to dial that back for him this year, but he's been thrust into a bigger role too. So the fact that he is still finding a way to contribute night in and night out. And, I watch when Ian Cole's on the ice. I try to watch a lot of the guys. I mean, it's hard not to watch, Sergachev, because you know who he is and where he is when he's out there. But I'm trying to watch some of the guys a little further down the lineup and what they're doing, how they're contributing. I really like the pairing with Välimäki and Maatta when they're together. I think they read and react off each other well. Those things are all encouraging to me. So sometimes you just find some surprises, Robyn, that help you get through things. But here's another interesting question for you. And I know we're pretty much up against it time-wise, but what do you do when everybody's healthy?
That'd be a really tough. That'd be a tough decision to make. And you know what? I'm glad I'm not Bill Armstrong or Andre Tourigny, because I don't have to make that decision.
That's right. And you never know what's going to happen at the trade deadline. I think if everybody is healthy by the deadline, you will see some movement there.
Around. Oh yeah. And Utah will benefit from it because they'll get some of those assets back. Because again, let's remember they're a rebuilding team that can get some draft picks, and then stock back up on the future of the franchise.
Absolutely, and they have so many guys who have value. Believe me, we'll talk about that as we get closer to deadline. But for now, I think this is a good place to kind of jump off.
That is a good place to jump off. That's going to be it for this episode. Hope you guys liked what you heard. If you did, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Give us a comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube if you'd like to see our beautiful faces. Don't forget to interact with us also on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter or X, depending on whatever you guys want to call it, at @LO_NHL Utah. We're also on Blue Sky at Locked On Utah Hockey. I am personally at Robyn_Leaño. That's also on Twitter, and it's at Robyn Ice Time on Blue Sky. And Tom, where can we get you?
I am at Callahan on air over on Twitter, and I am at Tom Talks on Blue Sky. And absolutely welcome the comments, welcome the chatter anytime you want to interact.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to mention us. We're getting every now and then we get some people who have us a question and give suggestions for new episodes. Like if there's something you guys want to touch on for an episode and you want to reach out to us on social media, let us know. We're willing to listen to you guys all. If there's something that's really burning that you really want to know, we'll probably talk about it on a future episode. The Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Well, once again, thanks everyone to listen to this episode. We'll see you guys next time.